Well, good evening. Welcome to the Sportsman for the Last Tackle, your weekly one-stop shop. We talk everything rugby league. Kyle Amor and Kevin Brown in the studio with me this week. And gents, you've both been part of our coverage throughout the Challenge Cup. It started off, the road to Wembley started off in Orrell in January, right here on the Sportsman. And 5 months later, we've got our finalists.
Wembley, where the Challenge Cup story reaches its crescendo.
There is a fairy tale to be written.
Just once a year, rivalries are set aside. We come together as one. On this grand stage, every team stands equal. Beneath each club crest, heartbeats quicken. Favourites falter as underdogs rise.
Lachlan is a Leigh legend!
It's beyond expectation.
He's got the strength, he's got the speed! He's won the big Great Wembley prize!
Desire makes the impossible possible.
Danny Houghton has made over 1,000 tackles this season.
Victory snatched from the jaws of defeat.
Liam Marshall, and he might just have won it!
Dreams become reality, and heroes become immortal.
That is one sensational try!
Upsets, ecstasy, glory. The men's and women's Betfred Challenge Cup Finals, where only one thing is guaranteed. Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, Wembley beckons. The stage is set for the Betfred Challenge Cup Finals after semi-final weekend in Doncaster and St Helens. And we'll just start off talking about the men's games. Gents, Kev, two reasonably one-sided semi-finals in the end, but how good were Wigan and Warrington?
Well, yeah, they've definitely peaked at the right time. I think Wigan, obviously the World Club Challenge winners, they went into the season favourites, and if anything, they've even strengthened that. I thought they were perfect for over 80 minutes. Hull KR came to play, but the talent and the balance that they had and the strike all over the team. But it was defensively that I thought they were outstanding. And on the day, Hull KR just didn't have anything to fight back with. And then in Warrington, it was almost a replica of Wigan. They were sensational as well. So what a final we've got in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, if we get those versions of those two teams, Kyle, as Kev says, we're in for a belter.
Oh, without doubt. Two sides that obviously went into their semi-finals with hopes of getting there. They've now been able to do that. I just thought that, the Wigan Hull KR game, I agree with Kev completely. Wigan were exceptional. The scoreboard tells you that. But for Willie Peters and Hull KR, they met each other twice. They met each other, last year in the semi-final of the playoffs, and Wigan just showed what it takes to win a trophy or win a title. They stepped up, and the Hull KR have found once again that it's all right getting to those big games, but there's levels within them in order to get over the top. And I thought just the discipline right throughout was pretty shocking in that first half for Hull KR. And if you're going to do that against a quality outfit like Wigan, then they'll make you pay, and they did. And again, we touched on it before. The completion rate of Warrington Wolves was incredible. And when you do that in big games, you give yourself every opportunity, to take hold of the game by the scruff of the neck. And Warrington, once they got hold of it,
wasn't like they were conservative either, was it?
No.
With that completion rate, Matt Duffy was all over the field. George Williams was trying things. So incredible to think they only dropped 3 balls with the way they attacked.
Yeah, some of the tries again were outstanding, weren't they? And you're right, it sets us up for a massive final. One that could go down as a classic come June the 8th.
Yeah, we'll just touch on Wigan in a second, but we'll kind of jump between the two games. Those Warrington stats: Matt Duffy 213 metres, Matty Nicholson 40 tackles, Paul Vaughan averaged just around 11 metres a carry. Their playoff intensity, their cup-winning numbers, those, aren't they, Kev?
They are, and I said when Sam Burgess was, appointed as a head coach, I thought, it is a gamble, but the gamble at the minute's paying off. Not only because collectively he's got Warrington playing better than they have done for as long as I can remember, more consistently. They've got a character and a resilience about them that I've not seen in a long time. If they go behind, they've still got the trust. But the sign of a really good coach is getting the best out of his individual players too. And I thought Matt Duffy was really underachieving before Sam came over. And you can see the bond that he's got with them and the way he talks about his players, he cares for them. And I think he's doing a stellar job at the moment.
That's a sign of a good coach, Lewis. You know, a coach who can instill belief. You know, all the players, you know, pretty much at the elite level, they're all on a similar ilk in terms of skill. But it's just mentally what's the difference between most of those players. And sometimes you need a coach that comes in and puts an arm around you. We've all worked under coaches at times who have brought out the best in us and ones who maybe haven't. But you know, Sam Burgess, there's no doubt about it. I agree with Kev again that, you know, when he first came over, there was a lot of eyebrows raised in terms of where are his coaching credentials, his playing credentials. They aren't to question, but what he's able to do, he's able to stand at the front and in the middle of that dressing room and basically get everybody else to rise with him, and fair play.
They started so quickly, didn't they, as well? That was the most impressive thing I thought about Warrington. I mean, that Drinkwater try just turned him inside out pretty much instantly, and almost like a statement try right at the beginning of the game. It's 80 metres covered, it's a wide ball, and then it's just pace, pretty much undefendable. And look at the amount of players in support.
Well, they're shifting from inside their own half as well, so they've been given the licence in a big game to throw that ball. That's 6 minutes in. You know, it's not normally what you would do in a big game, but they've got the class and they've got the quality in there to see that space
and they've got the buy-in.
And attack it. Yeah,
they've got the buy-in from the players. What the coach is saying, they trust him. Yeah. So everyone looks on the same page. They look great defensively, but attack-wise, I think, you know, he's championing Martin Gleeson at the moment. I think the combination of that coaching staff, you know, led by Sam Burgess and Gary Chambers and Martin Gleeson, is just the perfect mix at the moment.
It feels like a similar thing's happening at Wigan as well. You look at some of the tries they scored. There's a Jake Wardle one which was absolutely outstanding, and that same thing. That it's just the backing up, players putting themselves in positions because they've got that licence.
Well, some of the tries that we're going to score in, he mentioned something in the pre-game, Matty Pete. He said, look, if we was previewing, you know, ourselves, I think we'd be really difficult to preview because there's attack and there's threat all over the field. Now, I think the one key for that team at the moment is Harry Smith, because they have got X factor all over the team. But what Harry did and does, I think, is his kicking game. He calms it down, he controls, he organises, and when something's not on, he's happy to be patient and point at a corner. So I think, you know, he's integral. He might not get the headlines as your Marshall, your Field, your French, and your Wardle, but what he is you know, the glue that holds all that prowess together.
One name I think we do need to mention for Wigan, Carl, you'll know him well.
Yeah.
You'll also know how impressive these numbers are.
Yeah.
Luke Thompson, 80 minutes, 36 tackles, 196 metres.
Yeah, Tomo, he's come back over and he's sort of, you know, from when he left at St Helens to go and join the Bulldogs, he was in the form of his life, and he's gone over to the Bulldogs, and there's some games it went well for him, and other parts in the season it didn't. But, you know, a lot of injuries over there as well. But he seems back to his absolute best. You know, I've watched him a number of times when we've been covering games and at Wigan, and he's relentless in everything he does. His work rate is exceptional, and when you've got a middle forward like that who can go the distance in a big game, you know what a joy that must be for Matty Pete to have. And
Kev, you mentioned Harry Smith in terms of his attacking play, but one of the stats that jumped out to me as well, 501 kick metres. So it's just that territory game where Wigan are making other teams play because of that. Like, seems like a small stat, but 501 kick metres is a lot.
It's a hell of a lot, and what that did was relieve a lot of pressure when they were being bogged down because they couldn't get out their own half. And like I mentioned before, Hull KR came to play. They were physical at the start of the game, and yeah, they got blown away, and everyone's saying Hull KR were poor, but that was because what Wigan did. And Harry Smith was key to that. His kicking game at the start of the game was sensational. He was kicking behind high levels, and he obviously put a few kick, competitions up in the air, which resulted in tries too from the Burgess and the Nye Levels spills. So his kicking variation at the moment is very, very integral to everything we're going to do him.
Well, he's shown that over the last year and a half. I think there's been a maturity with Harry Smith and how he's gone about, you know, particularly kicking. You know, the one game that always I think back to is that World Club Challenge. They were under the cosh for the best part of 60 minutes in that game, and it was Harry Smith's boot that was just able to clear away, and trust his size defensive attitude that would get him over the line. So, you know, yes, he has got that in him, but he's also got those neat little kicks, those short kicks as well that Kev mentioned too. About,
don't forget the Challenge Cup final a couple of years ago at Tottenham. Harry Smith was the reason Wigan won that game
That
because
kick
of
to
that
the corner, wasn't it? Yeah.
There was one as well, I think, third test against Tonga, where it's almost like a goalkeeper style kick, but it's like on a sixpence.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, and it's such a quality and underrated skill, you know. Again, Kev's mentioned about the guys who get the headlines, Jay Field, Bevan French, Wardle. You know, Harry Smith's right up there with all them for sure.
Huddersfield were underwhelming. They obviously came on the back end of a big scoreline, but we've touched on some of these stats. We'll just rattle through them again. Warrington completed at 94%. They made 3 errors, conceded 1 penalty and 1 set restart. It's just suffocation, Carl. How do you play when your opposition's doing that?
Well, you've almost got to do exactly the same, and then you hope for you know, you're in the land of hope then, aren't you? You know, 2 teams going at it, but you know, that just it honestly, in big games, it absolutely kills teams, and then you're waiting for the opposition to crack, and you know, Warrington found an awful lot of points in that game.
And to this final, Warrington, Wigan, as we kind of said at the top, if you get 2 teams playing like that, it's going to be an outstanding watch. Wigan have the opportunity to hold all 4 available trophies at the same time, which, I mean, we talk about treble winning sides, and they did that. Haven't quite done that. Obviously, the 4 trophies will split across 2 seasons, but what an achievement it would be, Kev.
I think it'll be the biggest achievement that a club has ever done, winning all 4 trophies in the modern era. And this isn't being disrespectful to the eras gone by, but with the salary cap and the way it is so lopsided now, you know, on the other side of the world in Australia and New Zealand, what Wigan have done already to win the World Club Challenge and start the season so dominantly, if they can do that, I think they'll go down in history. Probably like the Saints team I've recently done under when Kyle was involved as well. Them 2 sort of eras at both clubs have been something magical.
I just think on that, look, you as a player and as a club, you can only attack everything that's on offer. And if Wigan have a chance to hold all 4 of them trophies, well, I think that's something that's got to be celebrated, absolutely.
And there's been a lot of news around coaches and coaches moving around, which we'll touch on in a bit in the last few weeks. But it's going to be Matty Peet and Sam Burgess leading 2 teams out of Wembley, Kev, 2 young English coaches, and it almost feels like a kind of the next wave coming through. We had that era of like McDermott going up against Tony Smith, obviously, and Aussie would have been over here so long that he felt like he was English, and all of a sudden it feels like Pete and Burgess might just be those next torchbearers. Yeah,
well, Matty Peet seems like he's been around for years already. He's you know, he's only just turned 40 years old, but he seems like he's been coaching for 20 years already. So he's already a very experienced coach and someone who Wigan have done really, really well tying down for the next 7 years. And like I mentioned before, Sam was a gamble because he had never coached his own team, but the gamble was sort of an educated gamble, wasn't it? I think, you know, everyone who's been in his company, and I have been in his company and in big games, he's such a great leader. He's so calm, and everything he says you trust, because one line I heard from Joe Philbin was he never asks us to do something that he's not already done himself. So when you earn that respect from playing the game to such a level, there's no there's no players at the moment who have performed like Sam Burgess on the field. So when he's saying things to the lads, they have complete buy-in. Even if it's the wrong thing and they all follow it, it will end up the right thing.
Just going to touch on the women's semi-finals as well. We've got a repeat of last year's final coming up at Wembley, St Helens versus Leeds. It feels like there's absolutely nothing between those 2 sides at the moment. Yeah. But just to pick out, again, we've been talking a lot of numbers, but the numbers that Jodie Cunningham put up at the weekend, Carl, 32 tackles, 192 metres, 2 try assists. St Helens captain, that's exactly what you want your captain to be doing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was one of those try assists that really killed off the game. She comes up with a really soft, short pass to Darcy Stott, I think it is, who just crashes over from 10 out, but she was put under a lot of pressure, and to be able to find that pass was a brilliant piece of skill from it. Yeah, you're dead right, repeat of last year's final. Those teams will go at it as well this weekend, so a little dress rehearsal of that, so plenty to look forward to in terms of the women game, Lewis, as well.
Just before we move on to go back to some of the breaking news in the Betfred Super League, there's another final, well, 2 other finals being played at Wembley that day, but one of them features certain Amor and Brown Jr.
Yeah, it does. Look, we're all really excited. Obviously, Kev does an awful lot of coaching with the majority of that school side, which is St Peter's School in Wigan. You know, but a lot of that team is part of the Oral St James's amateur club as well, where Kev and Joe Molyneux do brilliant things with them, and of course, look, a lot of credit's got to go to the PE staff at that school where they've managed to get to the final, and me and Kev can't wait to watch our boys get out on that field like we were able to do. So it's almost made little hairs on my neck stand up there even just saying that. So no, we're really excited.
Does it not irk you a little bit that they're already kind of ticking off bits you did in your career, Kev?
Well, he's already mentioned to me, if I win this game at Wembley, I've done what you couldn't do in 20 years of professional sport at the age of 12. So
he's got his.
He's going to bed. He's going to bed early after that game if that happens, because I can't put up with him giving me any more grief.
Oh, it'll be a great day at Wembley, always is, but obviously that final, the women's Betfred Challenge Cup final, the men's and the 1895 as well, just a brilliant event at Wembley. Moving on, just so much news to get through this week. The big one that we've been following for, well, all season really, but a lot obviously in the last month. Hull FC finally have their man, John Cartwright, Brisbane Broncos assistant head coach, will be their new head coach from 2025. His big head coach record comes at Gold Coast Titans, 186 games, win percentage of 46%, which is pretty middle of the road, but actually when you put it in the context of that club, it feels like a good appointment for Hull FC.
Yeah, I think the timing's, it needed to happen sooner rather than later, and you know, there was no secret that they was in for, you know, Paul Rowley first. They missed out on his man, and it's just good that they've got that clarity now moving forward that John's going to be coming in, and I think the senior figure will really help. That whole side, you know, the experience he's got, regardless of the coaching credentials, he has been around the NRL for a long, long time, so he'd have seen everything in the game. He'll have his own play. The one thing I did like what he came out with, he said, I don't know how they've done it before, but next year, make no mistake, they're going to be a fit team, so good luck with that one, lads. I think he's going to flog you in pre-season, and a fit team's always a good side, so I think that's a good sign.
Well, we were able to do, you know, my time in St Helens, we believed that we were the fittest team in the competition, and you know, it can take you so far when you've got that. Again, I just think that, you know, that the timing is right. You know, straight after that London Broncos defeat, that was probably as bad as it has ever been seen, particularly in the Super League era for for the Hull FC club. Take nothing away from London, they had to do what they had to do, but I just think back to my time when Justin Holbrook was announced as coach mid-season, and what that does is it puts an awful lot of those players who may have just been bumping along nice and comfortable. Well, there's a guy watching now from the other side of the world, and when he gets here, you know, if you're not up to speed with it, or, you know, for whatever reason you're not showing that you want to play for that shirt, well, you'll be shown the door. So you normally expect a bit of a reaction from a team that's bringing a coach over shortly.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, Kev. Obviously, it doesn't come in until next season, but the players...
You'll be watching, no doubt about that now.
Like you just said, the players now know who they've got to impress. Yeah. There's a bit of stability there. There's a bit of long-term vision. Will that help them this season, even before he's through the door?
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure he'll be having conversations with Simon Griggs and the rest of the coaching staff via phone. It's a very similar situation what happened when I was at Huddersfield, and John Sharp got released halfway through the year, and Nathan Brown was appointed. And we all knew Brownie was actually messaging the coaches and messaging players, you know, even though he wasn't in the role. But what he will be able to do, he'll be able to, you know, take the emotion out of it, have a real good evaluation of his side, and it gives him a little bit of time to recruit too, because recruitment is something that Hull FC have done pretty good already when Richie Myler's gone in there, but I'm sure there's a fair bit of business, because he'll want to bring his own players in. He won't just be one of giving a squad, he'll want to bring his own players in. And what this sort of 6 months or so does now is gives him that time to evaluate the squad, see who he's going to keep, see who's going to get rid of, and then bring some players in.
Just very quickly before we start looking at this week's fixtures, obviously Willie Peters has signed a new contract, Adrian Lamb has signed a new contract. How good is it for the Betfred Super League that these coaches are kind of pitching their tents long term in the competition? Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's brilliant for Hull KR. I believe they're on a journey. I think there's still more to come in them. I think obviously what they've got going on off the field as well, in terms of, you know, the powers that be upstairs are going to, you know, if the rumours are right, they're going to be able to give them more money to build a bigger and better squad. And I think what Willie Peters has done there is created a real buzz around the place. You know, the fans are all buying into it. The team have been buying into it. Again, they've just come up short, you know, against a champion side. That, you know, that can't be undersold. And for Adrian Lamb as well, I think that's really important for the league club to have that that bit of stability. It's probably something that they haven't had, you know, for a long time. You know, they've got in a coach in Super League that's won them trophies, that now has committed his future to them. You know, his job now is to make sure that the next phase, the next recruitment process of Leigh is as good as what the last one was.
So Adrian Lamb stays, Willie Peters extends his stay in the Super League, John Cartwright will be Hull FC coach in 2025, and I'm sure he'll be watching intently this week as the Betfred Super League returns.
You're watching the Sportsman Rugby League. Subscribe for weekly shows, exclusive content and live games.
Right, so let's have a rattle through this week's games then. 6 on the menu as ever, and I have really liked the look of the first one, to be honest. Friday night, Huddersfield against Leigh Leopards, and a lot of storylines going on here. Huddersfield off the back of that defeat, Kev. It feels like actually quite a significant moment in their season.
Well, yeah, I think they're 8th at the moment, so they're out the playoffs, they're out the cup, and they're playing poor. I watched the game versus Wigan the week before the semi-final. They, you know, for the first half they were competitive. For the second half they gave up, and that is a worry. They went in and they limped into the semi-final. They were very, very poor again. I think there'll be a few changes this week, personnel-wise. I think he's probably going to rip the team sheet up and start again. And they need to win this game, because if they don't, I think the pressure starts building on Ian Watson.
Again, we've said this a number of times, haven't we, in the past about Ian Watson. You know, he's obviously had a number of seasons there now, and it hasn't quite happened, has it? You know, again, Ken Davies backed in with a bit of an open checkbook. He recruited an awful lot of players over the last 2 seasons. And once again, we're getting a sort of similar product. They threatened about a month or so ago, the form started to pick up, didn't it? And they started getting a good couple of results. And I was sat there thinking, right, now here we go. Now we're going to see the best of them. But again, you know, very shortly, they've fallen away. These two sides both sitting relatively, you know, the same positions on the table. It's a big game, this one. But I actually think, you know, I think Leigh get the job done.
Yeah, interesting from a Leigh perspective. Obviously, Adrian Lamb signed that new deal. John Asiata's going, Tom Amone's going, but do you think there might just be a little bit of a response to that news in the week, a little bit of a kind of positive uptick from them?
I think so, yeah. I think they've actually been playing pretty well since the players have come back. Ipape's back, and Lachlan Lamb and Moylan have struck a really good combination. So I think there will be a reaction, probably more reaction recruitment-wise and retention-wise. I think when there's speculation about the coach and Asiata leaves and Amon leaves, I think, you know, securing Adrian Lamb, things probably calm down a little bit, and the superstars will probably stay. But I think they'll be too good for Huddersfield at the moment. If they start well, I think confidence-wise over there is shot at the moment. So I think Leigh win that game.
Also on Friday night, talking about reactions, what a night this will be for Hull FC. Obviously, John Cartwright will be watching on from down under, but after that defeat to London, they go against Castleford, who are kind of down there at the bottom with them, and this is huge for Hull FC, isn't it, Kev?
It is. It's one game that I'm sure they've been looking forward to for a while. I think what they would have been looking forward to is, you know, the run of London, Castleford, and seeing if they could build some sort of confidence. They've fallen at the first hurdle. Now, the second hurdle is arguably much tougher than the first one, so they will have to perform much better. I think Ben Reynolds will make his debut for Hull. So I think Hull win this game. I do. I think the fact that they've sorted the coach out, they've had a couple of weeks preparation for this, I think they win this game.
It feels bizarre saying this in May, Kyle, but it feels like the season's kind of gone from a Hull FC perspective. Pride to play for at this point, but a lot of pride after that London defeat needs to be restored.
Yeah, I don't think it's bizarre to say that it's gone. I think all evidence was there probably after 3 games that it was gone. You know, I know that sounds brutal to say, but that Hull FC team on paper, you know, you look at it and you almost had eyebrows raised right from the off with them, where you know, in terms of the quality that was in there. But you know, what has been shown on the field is they just haven't been doing anything right. There was one game a couple of weeks ago where they played against Leeds Rhinos. They came short in that game, but the effort and the commitment was there, so much so that the crowd, the home fans, give them a standing ovation as they left the field. But that's probably one incidence in you know 10 or 11 games. But yeah, I do think that with the coach being announced, a lot of those players in there will know who's going to lead them for 2025 and beyond. I think it's now time that, you know, I don't think it's the young players actually. I think it's those ones who are established that need to step up and realise that they want to be in an FC shirt next year or not.
Cass, there's some positive noises coming out of Cass, Kev.
No, yeah, and they've picked up performances. I think the coaching staff, have really started to get the best out of that side. They've firmed up on the squad and they're playing some good stuff. I think Paul McShane's been, when he's been playing, they've always got a chance. And the older players, Liam Watts and Joe Westerman, have really started to stand up. So I do think they're a much tougher task than what it says on the table. I think they've been competitive a number of times and beaten some good sides, Salford being one quite recently. But I think the reaction from Hull FC, I think that emotional reaction that they'll all want to put a shift in, one for pride and two for the new coach, will just be enough.
Friday night, the feature game on Friday. It's a big one, this, St Helens Leeds. I think, Carl, there might be quite a tense atmosphere around the Totally Wicked.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think Saints are. I don't think they're showing what they're capable of. Leeds Rhinos again. Kev, they're a bit of a. You never know what you're going to get out of Leeds Rhinos.
They've been poor.
They've been poor. Look, I think St Helens get this job done. I think there's more quality in there than there is Leeds Rhinos. But I don't think it will be a landslide either way. I think it's going to be a very close game. And you've got to think back to the reverse fixture of this when Leeds Rhinos, they ran Saints off the park for half an hour, so they do have that in them. They still managed to go on and lose that game. But this game doesn't need any dressing up. Saints v Leeds, wherever they're at, it's a massive, massive game and one that I'm sure everyone can't wait to watch.
I think Saints win convincingly. I think the fact that they went to Catalans Leeds and got beat 26 points to 0, and the amount of players they have got missing. They've so many talented players missing. And so many players on the park at the moment, underconfident and not performing. I think Saints at home. I think there's going to be a reaction to Tommy Makinson leaving in a positive way. I think it'll almost be a celebration, and we'll use that. Paul Wellens and the club will use that narrative to inspire and try and send Tommy off in a good way. And I think start this week, I think they'll get the job done quite convincingly.
Just on that, Kev, the Leeds Rhinos injury, did you think that's what's been their problem then, the injuries? Or?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They've been poor. The combination, the new signings who have come in have been really, really poor. But you add on to the top of that the injuries. That's not helping anything. When they're already struggling and you're putting young players in there like your Simfields, I just don't think it's a combination that produces success.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier, it feels like a kind of significant waypoint in the season for both teams. We'll move on to Saturday, and after that statement win at the weekend for Warrington, Kev, I'd argue actually we're going to learn more about them this weekend because they're coming off the back of a real high, a really good performance, going to Catalans. They've got to do it again against a good team, and we may just learn if Sam Burgess has put a little bit of that kind of steeliness into them to make them consistently good. Yeah,
I think we'll probably see how far they've come from the first game of the season to this one as well, and I think what's really key is they've took them over for a week.
Yeah.
They've gone over there and taken this serious. It's not a holiday. I've spoken to the players and they're loving the sun, but they're over there working really, really hard to get the job done. There's a couple of ways of going at it. Do we go on the day and get the job done, or do we? Well, Sam Burgess is as good as anyone in terms of knowing what a trip should look like, and I think the fact that they've gone Challenge Cup Final, Semi-Final sorted, we're getting over the heads on this job. Forget about everything in England now. We're going over to France and we're going to get this job done. I think Catalans Warrington will be as good a game that we've seen all season.
Yeah, it's the pick of the round by far, isn't it? And the fact that they're over there now, I think smart because for the players we are in that mid-season part, and it's important to sometimes get away from the monotony of training ground every single day. I think it's clever that he takes them over there. Of course, there'll be a bit of downtime. There'll be downtime in the evening. Just I'm not saying that it's going to be anything other than what it would have been like over here in the course of a week, but just that change of environment, that chance to bond together as well, because they're going to be with each other, almost like a mini pre-season camp in the middle of the season. I think it's a very clever move. I think obviously Catalan, but the more interesting one for me as well is that I've no doubt that Sam Burgess and the team will be attacking this game, but it comes the week after when they play against Wigan. They play Wigan before the Challenge Cup Final. That'll be the really interesting part. How do they approach that game? But without looking too far that way, this one will be an absolute cracker.
Predictions?
I'm going to go Warrington. I think they get it done.
If Warrington can complete over 90%, they win the game for me. But I think it's really difficult to do that 2 weeks on a run. I think Catalans at home. I think they'll be too strong for Warrington.
Moving on, also on Saturday, a belting game last time these two teams met at the AJ Bell. Salford versus Wigan, or Salford Community Stadium as it's now known. Salford versus Wigan. Salford were winning that game up until a moment of madness from a goal line dropout. I would imagine that they probably got in the next day and circled this game as a revenge mission.
Yeah, I was at that game, and that was Mark Sneed was the best player on the field by a country mile, and the worst player in the last 5 minutes by a country mile also. But what Salford do is they when they're underdogs, they just find a way of winning. Whenever they're the favourites, I worry about them. But at home against Wigan, they've got every reason to get beat and beat comfortably. And you know, Paul Rowley will tell you they'll have players out. They've not much front row, but they'll find a way and they'll come up with a performance and a tactic that pressures Wigan. Have they got enough? I don't think they have. I don't think they've got enough in the pack to maintain what is a juggernaut in terms of in forward power. I think Wigan will be too strong and we'll get over Salford. But Paul Rowley will come up with something that makes it entertaining.
I don't think I've ever been in a stadium atmosphere quite like that after that dropout. Wigan fans didn't know what happened. Salford, it was just a state of mass confusion, wasn't it? Salford can pick a team off, and they'll at home they'll look at this game. Wigan again, coming off the back of a big semi-final.
Yeah, of course they can, Lewis. You know, Salford have shown us for 4, 5, even when Watson was there, they've shown that Salford team, you know, can pick off any team. Any team that wants to dip their toe into a game, they'll have them, and they'll have them by moving the ball. They're probably one of those sides that make you run more than any other team. You know, they make you as a middle, they make you move around, and they play the numbers and they play with their eyes up. And you know, it will be. Look, I think Wigan get the job done. You know, I just can't see Wigan slowing up. I really can't. I just think they've got the bit between the teeth. They've got an enormous squad. They've got quality.
They're playing for cup final positions as well.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That enormous. They've got so many middles who aren't even playing, who could arguably walk into most of the competition 17. They've got an absolute plethora of players who are capable of playing Super League. Kev's right, they're all playing for a Challenge Cup final shirt, and it starts at Salford. You've got 2 games to go before the big dance, and I just don't see them slipping up. I called it at the start of the season. I think everything's there for Wigan to take and wipe the floor this season. And from what I'm seeing, there's not too many games where I've watched the Wigan side and gone, I'm not quite sure they're there then.
You know what Matty Pete's team talk's going to be, though? It's probably the worst thing that Salford could have done is pushed them so close last time in the same ground. They'll be saying, look, you dipped your toe in last time and you nearly got your backside smacked, and this time you've got to go in there and win this game.
I started that off by saying that game's on Saturday. It's actually on Sunday. I best write that on my hand as I'm supposed to be going and turn up on the right day. Finishing off the weekend, London Broncos Hull KR. Obviously London got that win last week at home again against a Hull KR team that will be licking their wounds, and they'll fancy that they can cause another surprise.
They will, and you know, London full of confidence for the first time. They've got absolutely nothing to lose at home. The fans will turn out. They've getting good crowds down there. It's a tough trip, and it's an even more challenging trip when you've just been knocked out the cup. You know, they'll want to get back and perform, but the adrenaline and the emotion that game's taken out of them we'll see in probably the last 20 or 30 minutes in this game. But if London can start fast and put that seed of doubt in Hull KR's mind, I think they've got a great chance.
I just think for Hull KR, there might be 1 or 2 of their players now questioning stuff. Not questioning the coach or anything like that. Just gutted that they actually... Yeah, I think some of the Hull KR players, Kev, would have fallen into the trap of, I'm in a right good team now and I've got a chance to get to Wembley. And I think emotionally, just that lead balloon of what happened at the weekend there might be a little bit of a hangover from that. And London, you know, Mike Eccles, I listened to one of your podcasts, Kevin. I listened to a piece that he did on Sky Sports News, and what he seems like he's doing is he's almost, you know, the IMG have disregarded them. So he's created that siege mentality, and I think off the back of that win against FC, I think they're going to be, you know, they'll be bouncing into this next game. It just depends on which version of Hull KR turn up, I believe.
Just before we wrap up, Kev mentioned it earlier, Kyle. Tommy Makinson leaving St Helens at the end of the year. Obviously, someone you played with a lot, know very well. How good has he been for that club? To do that for one club, but also two of the clubs been at the top for so long, is some achievement.
I think he's one of a couple of, you know, if I was to pinpoint, you know, 2 or 3 reasons why St Helens went on to have that that 4 in a row, that dynasty, whatever you want to call it, where they won everything. I think it's, you know, there's him and Mark Percival I would put right up there in terms of what they did out of backfield that nobody else was doing, and the way that they did it, and the ferocity in which they carried the ball to get the sets rolling. You know, some monster carries out of backfield, and just how direct they were. And they won ruck after ruck, and then what that allowed Saints to do was take over through the middles, you know, your likes of Walmsley and Roby and people like that. But without doubt, if it hadn't have been the work out of backfield from Tommy Makinson, you know, I don't think we'd have won as many trophies. I think he's the best winger I've ever played with, you know. And then there's the other side of it as well. Some of the tries he scored, the finishing he's been able to do, you know, putting the ball down on the size of a stamp in the corner under enormous amounts of pressure. I just think he's one of the greatest one of the greatest wingers of the Super League era, without doubt. And I know an awful lot of credit goes to him in terms of what that club's been able to achieve. And I know right throughout the playing group and the fans that they have got so much respect for Tommy. But you know, time moves on, players move on, and he's one of them. And we wish him and his family all the best wherever he goes. And you know, obviously the rumour is south of France, isn't it? I don't know if it's been confirmed yet or not. But if it is that, then good luck to him.
It's a skill as well, isn't it, to be able to hit the post on purpose in a grand final and drop the ball straight into the hands of Jack Wellesley. What a player he's been for St Helens and the Betfred Super League. Gents, absolute pleasure. We've run out of time, but thank you for joining us. That's a belting fixture list this week. We're 2.5 weeks away from the Betfred Challenge Cup Finals. What a time to be a rugby league fan in this country, and we'll be with you every step of the way. We'll see you next week on The Last Tackle.